Well, thank you, Carl, for inviting me, and we'll see how this goes, I guess. You probably asked other people in the industry, and everybody said, no, just send Bill, right? We don't want to do that. And Linda, I'd like to point out that I brought a better, laser pointer, so if you need a good laser pointer, you can see RCP, and I'll give it to Carl if he'll promise to buy me a beer later. So,
been down that road.
yeah, been down that road. Okay, so Carl, gave me a title, which was problems that come from people focusing too much on consequences, and I added the asterisk on too much because it's kind of one of these Goldilocks problems, right? What's just right? What's too little? What's too much? What's just right? Well, we don't know exactly, but the way we commonly look at it is risk is probability times consequences. So probability, how likely is this thing to happen? And then consequences, well, how bad would it be if it did happen? You take those two things together, and you get what we would count as a risk. So consequences are half the equation. So obviously they're very important. You can't ignore that. But that's only half the equation. The other half is how likely is it to happen? So it's not enough to say there could be a terrible thing, or even there used to be a terrible thing, something terrible happened. We still have to look at how likely is that to happen in the future. So improper focus only on consequences leads to bad risk management because we're trying to manage the overall risk of something to happen. The other problem is consequences are all different. And I was reminded of that when Linda was talking a few minutes ago. Their cost-benefit analysis. How do you decide the value of one thing versus another when they're just different things? So which is more important, a big oil spill in a sensitive environment or 100 people getting some kind of injury? Because they're two different things. Or 10 minor injuries or 10 small releases along the pipeline. You don't want either one. These consequences are all undesirable things, but you can't directly compare one consequence or one type of consequence to a different type of consequence. You might be able to compare a 1,000-barrel spill to a 10-barrel spill and say the 1,000 barrels worse, but it still depends on where it happened. So, so even just on a pure volume basis, you can't just do a direct comparison. And the problem is there's just not a right answer to these questions. I can't tell you which one of these things is more important or which one should demand more of your attention or more of your money, more of your manpower. And since we're here along the Mississippi River, I thought a quote from Mark Twain would be good. We should be careful to get out of an experience only the wisdom that is in it and stop there, lest we be like the cat that sits down on a hot stove lid. She will never sit down on a hot stove lid again, and that is well, but she also will never sit down on a cold one anymore. So it's like maybe sitting on stove lids is a bad idea altogether, but just because you've been burned by one time doesn't mean they're always hot. And, so we have to worry about, yes, we realize one big event happened in a tragedy, and we all agree it's a tragedy, whatever that particular event might be, but we have to not jump to the conclusion that, those tragedies are going to happen all the time in the future. No, we still have to look at the probability of that. And this is what my patented, I forgot to put the trademark sign on there, what I call my NIMBY to NOPE flow chart, or NIMBY to NOPE risk management chart. So we'll start with NOPE. Probability over here, so to the right, more likely to happen. Consequences here, to the top, worst consequence. Okay, so the risks that you have over here on the top right-hand side, those are just NOPE risks, not on planet Earth. You cannot have big consequences all the time. You'll lose your license to operate. Okay, so you just, whatever it takes, you got to fix that. Meanwhile, down here in the lower left, that's what I would call NIMBY, not in my backyard. Doesn't happen very often. If it does happen, it's more of an inconvenience than a tragedy. This is, fender benders. You don't want fender benders, but, if that's your only risk, you're probably doing a pretty good job on risk management. In the middle here, things that, well, maybe some more important things happen, but they're very rare, or less important things happen more often. You're going to balance that. That's the 10 injuries versus one spill kind of thing, you're going to have to manage those risks. And, that's where you pay people a lot of money to help you figure that out. And then you have right up here the things that are at the very left-hand side and real high. Those are tragedies that practically never happen. Maybe they've never happened in the history of the pipeline industry, but they could happen. Those are what I call tough calls. It's like, how much of your resources are you going to spend on that? Because if it did happen, in hindsight, obviously you wish you had spent a whole lot more of your resources to prevent it. But is that where the industry really needs to focus all their efforts? Well, I would argue no. So choices have to be made every time. We all do it. We have risks in our life every day, whether we drive, whether we fly, whether we walk our dog. There's going to be a risk associated with just about everything we do. And we do risk management, not risk elimination. We cannot remove all the risk from life. We can't remove all the risk from the pipeline industry or from the automotive industry or any other industry. So we have to manage that. If we could eliminate it, we certainly would. There are risks that you could just completely wipe out. Be happy to wipe them out. But usually we're trying to balance. And if it was easy, we wouldn't be here. As I used to tell my boss, if you could accurately measure everything I do, you wouldn't have to pay me so much money to do it. So anyway, that's my counterpoint.
All right.